taget på Ny Carlsberg Glyptotek, hvor de skal dyste i kunstquiz. Bagefter en af de mange populære serier fra DR's store arkiv. Du får 2 afsnit af En by i provinsen fra 1977. Men først er filminstruktør Nicolas Winding Refn hovedperson i en fransk dokumentar. Følg ham i Cannes, i København og på filmoptagelser i Bangkok.
Il faut comprendre une chose. Le cinéma est arrivé à un état décevant, en pleine dégénération industrielle. Avec cette pulpe, cette cancer que c'est le cinéma américain, qui a infecté la planète entière, et que ça a devenu véhicule des idées politiques, de les pouvoirs économiques, de tas d'excréments spirituels. Alors quand, tout d'un coup, quand on a perdu tout complètement l'espoir, et quand on voit que tous les films sont illuminés pareil, n'est-ce pas? Avec ce dégénéré de Spielberg. Bueno, quand de ce monde-là, on trouve un artiste qui peut survivre et que malgré qu'il doit gagner sa vie dans son métier, il reste pur, c'est un moment de joie suprême. Cet garçon, Nicolas, m'a sauvé de ma dépression cinématographique.
Best director is Nicolas Winding Refn for Drive.
I was just a meeting at the Film Institute, and they were very good to me. So they gave me the rest of the money I need for Only God Forgives. So right now I'm very relieved. Getting the extra amount, which is not a lot. I mean, it's still a very cheap movie. The budget is only 3.6 million euros. You know, getting the last remaining amounts certainly has to do with the price of what it can. So I guess, again, I must thank the French for helping me out, and I wish you all that you have your colonies back. You have to go straight. Just go straight, just straight. Yeah, but in this side, yeah, but straight. No, I'm sorry, you still have your colonies. Now you can officially have them. I was born in 1970 in Copenhagen, where I lived, and in 1978 we moved to New York, my mother and I and my stepfather. And I would then grow up for additional 10 years on Manhattan until 1987. And then an additional year, I would go to acting school, which is called American Academy of Dramatic Arts. So coming to New York was really far away in 1978. And it just show you the world is big, gigantic, and everything is possible. And you know, looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
He was very dyslexic, very, very much. He was watching a lot of TV. In America, there's so much TV. So from the early morning, you could hear TV, these cartoons and stuff like that. He loved movies all his life. I don't know why. Maybe because he was dyslexia. There was this thing with pictures, and You couldn't understand what they said.
When you were scolding him or telling him to do his homework and you were standing there screaming at him, you could see he was sitting thinking about how it would look if it was a film, you know, if there was a cutaway, if the camera should be there, he would be sitting. So, you know, he was making films all the time in his head.
Cinema became my only understanding. I didn't learn to read until I was 13. So it's all about making your obstacles your strength. But it's difficult to revolt against, you know, post-hippie parents because they've been more radical than you ever would be, I guess. And musically, my mother had seen Jimi Hendrix, you know, so there was nothing that I could offend them with. I don't take drugs because, you know, that's bad. So horror movies and exploitation things became my way of rebelling against my mother and so forth and my stepfather because they were very offended by it, that I would go see violent movies or strange movies, you know. I remember I tricked my nanny when I was about 10 to buy on VHS, we had just gotten a VHS machine, Escape from New York.
Nicolas is also like a movie buff, you know, he's like a collector of films also, so, and a lot of films that I hate, for example, all the exploitation movies and all this Dario Argento and all this crap.
This is the diploma that says I won the Best Director prize. And this is nail polish right here from some idiotic woman who decided to open this up before me. Skal vi komme ind til dig der? Ja. All these are my posters. Og den er da meget fed, den her. Wow. Jamen, Franke, det er jo så spændende, hvad man siger. The Exorcist. The Samurai in Danish. What is this in French? This is the Ridiodato first cannibal movie. Can you see, you know, the boys from Brazil? You know, and this is Lars Trier, you know? And these are all the clones of Lars Trier because, you know, he's a Nazi, apparently. So this is for Lars. I will frame this and send it out to him as a gift to see that he's not alone. I saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre when I was 14 at the Cinema Village in New York with a double feature with The Hills of Ice. And I remember I went home and I told my mother I had seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and she was like, outraged, how can I see something so hideous and violent? And I just thought it was the greatest film ever made. And I still think it's the greatest film ever made. Or at least it's my favorite film.
When we were on a second date in his house, just had dinner, now let me show you a very good movie. Okay, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I was a little bit, you know, okay, is it over soon? Because is this guy a freak? But I knew that it was an art movie and not just like a freaky person. That's
And then seeing Texas Chainsaw Massacre was just like, wow. You know, film didn't have to be normal. It could be more like a piece of music, like a John Cage music. It could be just you know, specific shots of images. It could be many different things. So that film is so much imprinted in my memory. later on, when I started making my own films, my own short movies, my mother was always very supportive. See, all my life, my mother's always told me I was a genius at whatever I did. After New York, when I was 17, I moved back to Copenhagen and I finished schooling, and I didn't like coming back. I'm growing up in Manhattan and coming back to Copenhagen is like coming to the suburbs, and that wasn't too cool. And then I got into the Danish film school when I was about 23, and it just didn't work out.
Nicolas, he just came into the film school when he had the money to make the Pusher film. So he had to choose between the film school or make the film because they wouldn't accept it. So he said no thank you to the film school the first time in history because everybody would give their right arm to get in there.
And he called me and said, and I said, no, for Christ's sake, can't you go to school and learn how to do? Yeah, they take 6 students every second year, you know, so he was very lucky to get into the school. But then he said, no, I want to go my own way, and I think the best for me is to do a feature film. And that was Pusher. And then I said, okay, good luck, my son.
Denmark is a very small country, very small. Not to say anything bad about it, but it is really small. And when you do things like that, people start talking and say, oh yes, he's so and so and so. But he doesn't care at all.
In Denmark, we have this law called Jantelaw. That's you can't think too much about yourself. Don't think that you're better than anyone else. So everybody was like, oh, don't do that. Are you crazy? I mean, you can't do that because you haven't gone to film school.
The first time I met him, it was in a kitchen of one of our friends, and we started talking quickly, and he told me one day he would get me $1 million to make music for one of his films.
There was this very young boy, short sleeves on his pants and glasses like this, and he wanted to make a film about the drug environment in Copenhagen. And I was like, ooh, what's going on here?
I met Nicolas in casting. Yeah, programmed me like a foreigners in Denmark, like this, and really touched the worst point. Yeah, so I started to be really angry. Yeah, so we came really in quarrel, like fuck. It was like a doom. When it's finished, I could feel wow. It was a game. Yeah.
The first Push I kind of wrote and directed with the sheer of ignorance. You know, I didn't know how to make a movie, and so I was so arrogant about it that it actually became like, well, it wasn't a problem for me.
We would rent the apartments. If we happened a scene in this apartment and the next scene was over there, we would shoot in here and we would go down the stairs filming it and run across the street, maybe hit a car and go up the other apartment. Fuck! So it was a super rock and roll atmosphere in the film. And we could do that because nobody knew who we were. We were running on the street and they thought we were just dealers and pushers.
Au moment où c'est sorti, c'était voilà la pègre telle qu'elle est réellement, la petite pègre. Et d'ailleurs, j'ai des amis qui ont plus ou moins fréquenté le milieu de la petite pègre, des petits braquages, etc. Ils sont tous fascinés par ces films parce que c'est vraiment comme ça. C'est comme un portrait semi-documentaire de ce milieu de galériens ultra-violents, mais il n'y a pas un personnage qui rattrape l'autre. C'est juste des chiens qui se battent en duel dans une cage, quoi. Ce qui est très bizarre, c'est à quel point le rapport des gens à la drogue, que ce soit l'héroïne, les extas, la coke, etc., est ultra réaliste, alors même que Nicolas, lui, il se drogue pas du tout, il boit pas, il mène une vie super saine. Et c'est le décalage entre le monde qu'il représente à l'écran et celui qu'il côtoie est tellement énorme que tu dis comment est-ce qu'il arrive à avoir un portrait aussi précis, quoi.
So the energy was very liberated in the sense that we had a feeling we were doing something special. At the same time, we had no idea how you make a film. Nicolas had an idea, of course, but we just tried to be the characters, and hopefully we were nailing the scenes, and hopefully it would turn out to be a film.
It's a film which changed a lot in Danish filmmaking because he came in with his rough, realistic style and different approach also to working with actors.
Yeah, a lot of things happening right in that period. I mean, the dogma concept was invented by Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg, and that group of people was people working in the thriller genre. And then there was Nicolas, who was actually out first doing what we could call documentary realism style, even though it was fiction. So I would definitely put Nicolas as the first one who changed it for real in this country. The whole dogma concept was very inspired by Pusha One, even though they will never admit it.
I thought it could be interesting to make a Western in Asia, which is essentially what Only God Forgives is, I guess. It's like the one place you wouldn't expect to make a Western. You can see the cinema, it used to have like a nice sign. It's like it's all gone now. It's like the death of cinema. It's like a graveyard. Only God Forgives is about a police lieutenant in Thailand who believes he's God, and an American who is looking for a religion to believe in, and he's a gangster. And a lot of mayhem and violence and chaos happens. Shooting in Chinatown is quite expensive because all the lights are quite expensive, and they shut them down around 9 p.m. and I have to shoot all night. So of course that's going to cost me money. So I realized I had to break the scene up in various functions in various places throughout Chinatown, moving it around, which is a little bit of an annoyance to me because I get confused if I don't shoot in chronological order. So I have to spend a lot of time thinking logistics. But I mean, that's what Bangkok is. Bangkok is one big knowledge of how to maneuver around locations and find the right places, because when you find the right places it works very well. Well, so we have to get a map of the city.
And mark it.
Yeah, and then what I'll do is that with Beth is that then I'll have her photograph every single street we do, so we can logistically put it up and find out how we move back and forth, you know. And also, some of these scenes we got to use 2 cameras, 3 cameras, whatever, you know. Because I don't want to use Steadicam because that annoys me. It all goes like this. Yeah. You have to retake it. It goes like this. You have to retake it. I guess we do have a lot of tracks.
Did you foresee it as something more upmarket than this, or just like
I think something like that. I like all those lights. Like, it's really strange.
Yeah.
Like, it's really strange with all those lights, you know.
Because they all seem to have it anyway, so kind of like... อันนี้ก็ร้องเพลงป่ะ
Do they try to clean up the city as much as possible?
Yeah, they do, but the rubbish is... The population is growing so much, so the rubbish is kind of like...
Well, that was that.
Well, that was that.
Yeah.
He saw us coming.
So this is where we're shooting, but we can't take you to those places right now because we don't have the mafia here to show us them. I have to deliver a script next week that people are screaming for, so I kind of have to get finished. Well, the way that I work is that I write everything in index cards, like all scenes, and then I write a sentence for each scene, and then I put it up on a wall in terms of how the film plays out, and I just sit and stare at it to see if I can find any problems in the structure. And it's nothing to do with dialogue, because that's secondary. That always comes later for me. It's all about the structure of the story. And it gives me the ability just to basically play the movie in my head. This is the last great... This is the death of home entertainment. This was the last great video store in Copenhagen, but now it's closing down, apparently. I haven't been here for years and years. So, this is where I shot my second film, Bleeder. The owner, Danny, had taken all his collections of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of VHSs and away, and now it's not. Now it's just a normal thrift shop. I love film. I love movies. I love television. I love television series. I love the internet. I love anything that enhances images. But most of all, I love movies.
Kan du også skaffe mig en pistol?
Hvad fanden skal du bruge en pistol til?
Ja, for sjov. Du skal lide mit og Louises liv, forstår du, mand? Fordi du er psykopat!
Det er bare en film, ikke?
Du ser film! Hvilken skid? Du ser 4 film om dagen, okay?
I was playing him, basically. Well, if you ask him, I'm always playing him. But this was very much him. A guy, a nerd who works in a video shop and tries to get in contact with this girl. But the funny thing is that when I read the script, there was a lot of cool scenes. He was pretty cool. And I had to talk to him and say, listen, Nick, you're not so cool. We have to take that out, you know. And he laughed a lot because he didn't see it as a cool thing, you know. It was just, but it was cool. It was too cool. I said, no, Nick, you're like De Niro in King of Comedy. You will repeat yourself 2, 3, 4, 5 times so it becomes embarrassing. And that's what we should do. And he loved the idea, so we worked on with the part a little, and it became almost him, my version of him.
Yeah, it's a lot of me in that movie. But there's a lot of me in every movie, but certainly in that one it's maybe more apparent, where later on my films have gotten more fantastic in its language, you know, so... Of course, every film I've made very much represents where I am in my life, one way or the other, you know, and I can't hide from that. But I don't think it's always too healthy for me to be aware of why I do what I do.
I see him very clearly in the movies, in all of them, because he's very shy, and the main character in the films are also very shy, like Mads Mikkelsen, for instance, in Bleeder. And also the last one in Drive, he's also... my husband called this the Drive film for Bleeder Goes to Hollywood, because it has the same kind of mood. And Nicolas also says something like that this guy is a kind of him.
Vi har masser på det. Shaving pussy. guy who is pussy, hairy woman.
We thought we shall just go and make films together like a group. And it crashed on the bleeder, yeah. On different way, because Nicolas changed a lot and said, now, you know, now I'm really director, yeah.
Well, I think that Bleeder, the set was much more destructive, and Kim Bodnia, who had played Frank in Pusher, was in a very difficult place in his life. Very self-destructive, so he was almost impossible to deal with. I don't know if I particularly liked making the film. I think it was under such pressure financially, and with the actors gone a bit crazy at that time. So it was almost a relief, you know, going across the Atlantic Ocean all the way to Canada to do Fear X afterwards.
I need to know when my wife was killed.
There's some more tapes for your collection. I understand Sergeant Franks has informed you that we've come up with some...
It's a movie that haunts me. I mean, basically on Fear X, I tried every single disaster you can possibly experience on making a movie. I think that I was too much into what I thought the movie was going to make me, like a great artist, compared to what the film actually needed.
Many people in Denmark still consider Fear X to be a complete failure, a flop. For me, it's like a Danish Lost Highways. The atmosphere in the beginning of Fear X, as well as the atmosphere in Lost Highways, in the very, you know, maybe the first 20 minutes, is, you know, unparalleled greatness. It's a fantastic achievement as a director, and much, in many ways, much better than what other Danish directors are doing. And that alone should, you know, have secured him a place in the Hall of Fame amongst Danish directors. But, you know, it is forgotten in the annals of Danish films, unfortunately.
Basically, into the movie, the Italian distributors said they couldn't deliver the money, so the financing fell apart while I was shooting. So I had to put in a personal guarantee. That personal guarantee was way too high for what the movie was actually worth in the marketplace. So it didn't work out. So when the film came out, we sold it, you know, it was sold, you know, to all the places that show movies, but financially it just didn't make any sense to me. And I then lost everything because I went bankrupt, and I ended up owing them, you know, about $1 million afterwards.
Det er som om, I er sådan nogle fantaster.
Jo, men skat, det er igennem fantaster, at man at tingene ligesom lykkes i den sidste ende, ikke?
Hvornår?
Vi har aldrig været tættere på at blive millionær end nu. Jeg har aldrig været så tæt på det, som nu.
Tæt på det? Du har en gæld på 5 millioner, hvad snakker du om?
Den kommer ud af verden, ikke? Det vil sige, at jeg har aldrig været så tæt på at være millionær, men...
Så jeg er ligeglad med byggeri. Du bør mig, fordi jeg ikke har gæld.
Men den er lige ved at være der nu, ikke? Tro nu bare på det. Ikke?
Men altså, jeg tror bare ikke rigtig på det, I'm sorry. It was really hard. We had no money at all. And I gave birth in the hospital, and I remember we had no money. So he had to find some US dollars in the drawers and exchange them to Danish money so we could we had no money. It was so bad. And I think it's even harder for a man to feel that way than a woman, because they have this feeling of they have to, be able to support the family.
But it's a textbook of things that went wrong that I was able to survive for some strange reasons. Like, God gave me a second chance. And he's basically said to me, start over. And so I went back and I did Pusher 2 and 3, which I did out of pure detest of having to start over, but it made me very humble and very humiliated, because of the disaster that 4X had been.
Tony er muligvis på vej. Det har været nødvendigt med beholdmad en gang imellem.
Nu bliver kunstigt stramt.
Og jeg har da også måttet hente ham i fængsel.
De her 80.000 var ikke mine, mand.
Skal han vokse op og blive ligesom dig?
Men så er det lurer, mor. Skal han det? Det betyder ikke et skidt for mig.
Being in that situation, I didn't, out of just being negative and depressed and self-destructive, I said, well, I'll make 2. I'll make Pusher 2 and 3 just to detach myself from it, to really treat it like a pure commodity, to show to everybody that I detested what I was making and I only made it to pay my debt and just get out and do something else. So I started making Pusher 2, and I had my first child right around there. I mean, I wrote Pusher 2 in like 2 weeks. And there's a funeral, symbolic. And in that way, that movie resurrected because I shot them back to back. I really enjoyed making Pusher 2. And 3, I really enjoyed even more. And I was suddenly able to go back and make the first one how I originally wanted to make it more, but I didn't know how to make a movie when I was 24. So I made it with ignorance. This time I had learned by my mistakes and knew going back I could make better movies out of it. So then you turn down here.
We had this concept of moving on to a next character. This time me, and then after that Zlatko Budic, and after that the guy who plays Little Mohammed. It was all set. We were about to shoot number 4 as well. But unfortunately, Little Mohammed ended up in jail for 7 years, so we couldn't shoot it. No, yeah, I know he says to everyone it was about money, and he wanted to make money. And maybe it was. But that's not... Having said that, for me, I didn't listen to that. I mean, it was the story, and the story was heartbreaking and beautiful. It was a very interesting character to make a leading character, because he's definitely not what we call a leading character. He is definitely a sidekick in his own film.
La fin, par exemple, de Pusher 2, elle se termine inattendue. Le personnage qui finit avec son bébé, c'est super sentimental. Peut-être effectivement c'est la seule manière de s'en sortir, de s'accrocher à un autre être vivant. On sait effectivement, il se rapproche de cette vision super violente et à la fois sentimentale de la vie, qui est celle d'Hubert Selby, avec qui il a travaillé sur 4X. Et ouais, que ce soit Dernière sortie pour Brooklyn ou Requiem for a Dream, ouais, il y a une vision du monde qui par moments est assez similaire.
To me, it is still a mystery why Pusher 2 wasn't laureated as, you know, one of the best Danish films ever. And that is really a good example of, you know, the love and hate relationship between Nicolas Winding Refn and the Danish film community, Danish film critics, because it is a masterpiece.
When it came to Pusher 3, which I think is a much better film, everyone in Denmark hated that film.
Prøv at høre, Milo, vi hjælper dig, og du hjælper os. Og det her, det er kun begyndelsen.
Look here, look. You're making fucking big kid.
It made good money because compared to it was a film about immigrants, and Danish people don't like immigrants, as you can see in our media. But the critics tore it to pieces, and I basically said, I will never, ever do a Danish film again.
He was too radical in pushing. People hate this in Denmark. Eh? Too much foreigners and too much Albanian, Serbian, Polish. We cut my whole film career in Denmark. Yeah? So back then, yeah, so you could play in theater and with band. I have a super band.
In my eyes, or in my head, in my finger.
I may be born Danish, and I have a Danish passport, but I'm a New Yorker by heart. So this is not my country.
7 years.
Don't worry, son. You'll be out in 4.
But I still have my principles. I am Charlie Brunson. I am Britain's most violent prisoner. Prison was brilliant. I loved it.
I never imagined that Bronson was going to be probably the closest thing I'll ever make to an autobiography, you know. I mean, I had no intentions of making a biopic. I mean, I don't know who Charles Bronson is or Michael Peterson, which was his real name, and I certainly don't have an interest in it.
Nothing wonky about my upbringing. Like most kids, I got into trouble. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. And all my life, I've wanted to be famous.
Bronson is essentially 2 parts. The first part, you know, when he narrates his life in the beginning, he talks about that he always wanted to be famous and that he didn't have any skills, which was clearly me. I mean, I even said those words, that I always wanted to be very, 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 very famous. And not just famous, because anybody can be famous. I wanted to be really famous. But I didn't know why. And I didn't know how, because I didn't have any real skills. Charlie finds that if violence, physical violence, and being incarcerated in prison is his stage where he can perform, he can start to become famous in that arena. And I did it in film, you know, out of nowhere. Essentially, I was given what is probably equivalent to 100,000 euros to make the first Pusher. But his downfall is because his arena was prison.
I want to make a name for myself.
Yeah, doing what?
He will then stay in a cage for the rest of his life. That's the morality of the tale, where I, thank God, didn't, because of my family and so forth, was able to, you know, getting the responsibility of a parent kind of made me mature and not be so childish as I used to be about everything around me. I really like Bangkok as a city. It's just completely chaos and frantic, and it's very visual and almost like a space city. And I felt it could be interesting to make a movie in Thailand the way that I make films, rather than going to some of the more famous metropolitan places like Seoul or Tokyo. I think Bangkok to me was more strange. I felt it was important to just understand a little bit about Muay Thai. Not that I'm making a movie about Muay Thai. I mean, that movie's been made 1,000 times. And I didn't want to do a Van Damme movie. But there's part of Muay Thai in my film, Only God Forgives. But I felt I just needed to understand a little bit about it, so I should try to go through the training that they do at a more human level that I would be able to compete with. I mean, I never did any sports in my life. I would never get myself to do it because I would be too lazy. I always find an excuse, and everyday life would say to me, "You're getting fatter. I don't find you attractive anymore." I'm like the Homer Simpson. My writing hands, my delicate writing hands. My wife's a fascist. Again. after the training and speaking to them and learning the history of Muay Thai very specifically. I'm very interested in the very old traditions, like 100 years ago and so forth, how they would fight. It's very fascinating, and it certainly changed the way that I'll do those fight scenes a lot, yeah, very much. Another trick is how can I get Ryan and the Thai actor to do what they need to do. And that thing where he jumps up and goes like that. Do a lot of Thai movies show this kind of Muay Thai, or is it old new school?
Just the movies.
Okay. Can I see some of the kicking again? What is your favorite movie scene, like fight scene?
Original over.
Why?
Part one.
They use a lot of kind of more ancient Muay Thai. The real look real.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Today was very helpful, of course. It was helpful to see what I don't want, because I don't want to make a fight movie. At least I don't think I want to make it. But I think, the reason for me making it is still a mystery, so I can't tell you, because then I have to kill you. But so what's going through my mind, being out here, is that it's the craziness of being so far away, planting everything out here, and then trying to make a fight movie, but without fighting in the traditional sense. But it was good to see. It's good to see. I need to see more. Sometimes you just want to sleep, but I don't got any time. Hold on a second. Hello? Hold on 1 second. Just 1 second, just hold on. Listen, I just got home and my baby is waking up. This is my life. Okay? It doesn't change. It's like having children. There's never a perfect time. Men han skal sikkert spille sådan noget andet noget. Flyver til LA i morgen i 5 dage. Det gør jeg. Hej Mads. Hey. He had a couple's friends over, and they had to watch photos of vacations together, which is probably the worst thing anybody can ever endure, of having to sit through vacation pictures. He lives in like some kind of stupid area where he bought a big, expensive house or something, which is just completely ludicrous. But I guess he's a movie star, so I guess you have to live a movie star life.
Me and Nicolas do not see each other. We don't see each other if we're not working. Our work relationship is our relationship. We have total contrary interests. I mean, he can only, and I say only, talk about films. And I can almost only talk about sports. And it's weird conversations, you know. But once we start working, we have a common goal.
In the beginning, there was man and nature, and on the fringes of the earth, there was a reckoning.
It was fairly easy to finance. I mean, I had Mads Mikkelsen, myself, Vikings. People saw what they wanted to see in that. But I didn't really want to make a movie about Vikings. I didn't have an interest in Vikings. Just like in Bronson, I didn't have an interest in prisons. I'd never been to a prison. I don't even know what a prison looks like.
When I die, you will go back to hell.
I have a very dark side, and I've been able to exercise that dark side out of me when I work. But I also know it's going to come back. So that's why I constantly make films, to exercise it out. Well, art is an act of violence. But in a sense, you can say, like, art and war are very similar. Has same DNAs. A lot of times the objective is the same. But where war destroys, like a weapon destroys, art inspires. So art will always be an act of violence.
What he does is radical, and it's okay to be radical. You don't have to ask permission to be radical. But it's the first film where we were really tools in his hands. It was difficult to bring a lot of things on the table because we didn't have that normal pitch story. And he said that, of course, we bring something, and we did discuss it a lot every evening, what we're going to do next day. But I'm sure that he feels he lost some control as well. But he didn't mind. There was something about the story that was going somewhere in the environment and with this cast and with everything that he found very interesting.
Valhalla was a very, very, very difficult film to make, and there was 300 hours of material in that. When I first got together the ending of Valhalla with the boy and the intercutting with him going into the water and everything, and I showed that to Nick, and it was very, very late, and it was just us two, and he saw it, and I swear he had a tear in his eye, and I thought, wow, he'd seen his film finally. It had come. It was there suddenly, and he seemed touched by it as a viewer as well as being the director of it. And I thought, okay, that's golden right there. It was very, very special.
I didn't want any Viking music at all, and then you come up with something that it's not in the language of the film. Nobody could have foreseen that kind of music, and that's good because the viewer gets a little bit out of it. Now there's not a string section here, so you know how to feel sad, and it frees you up to think a lot of different things about the film.
I usually approach each film like if it was a piece of music, what music would it be then? So very clearly you can go back and say, Pusher first one is like, well, that's like, post-punk. Bleeder is glam, rock. Furex is Eno, which is who ended up making the music for the movie Brian Eno. Pusher 2 was Iron Maiden. Pusher 3 was Neil Diamond. Bronson was Pet Shop Boys. Valhalla Rising, Einstürzen, Neunbein. So I can only write a movie when I know what it's going to sound like. Valhalla Rising, the idea was, wouldn't it be great to make a science fiction movie without science? It's a bit like if you lie at night and you stare up at the sky, you see all the stars. And you're very calm and you just stare at all the stars, almost like scientific. You know, there's a kind of science fiction that requires mechanics to get to those places. But if you continue to stare at night into the stars, you start to look beyond the stars. And beyond the stars, you just see this kind of black void. And that, to me, is when it starts to get interesting. That's kind of was the premises of Valhalla Rising. What would it be like to travel out there? And of course, faith becomes the answer. I always look for omens to see if something is trying to work against me making the film. I went to Jarowski and he gave me a tarot reading last year for Drive, and he said I would travel with the movie, so that made me calm down a little. And Only God Forgives, he also gave me a tarot reading, which was very, very interesting and very supportive. Drive, I wanted everything. I wanted the whole Hollywood mythology. I wanted to live in a house with a swimming pool, and all the actors had to come to my house to audition themselves. I wanted the whole glamour. It was great. I had a great Hollywood experience, and Ryan giving me this opportunity. So when you're in a situation where the star and yourself click, a lot of times really turn into something very good.
It was the first opportunity that I'd ever had to choose a director. I mean, provided that they wanted to do it. So I tried to sort of educate myself on who was out there. And I watched a lot of films, and the first one I saw was Bronson. And then I watched the rest of his films. And I felt two things. One was that everyone is different, you know, and he sort of won't allow himself to repeat himself in any way. But I did feel like there is a theme in all of the films. It seemed that all of the films had a central character who was the hero, was sort of born to lose. You know, that all of his heroes had a sense of a doomed destiny about themselves, and they all accept it. If I drive for you, you give me a time and a place. I give you a 5-minute window. Anything happens in that 5 minutes and I'm yours, no matter what. I don't sit in while you're running it down. I don't carry a gun. I drive.
So you just moved to LA?
No, I've been here for a while.
What do you do?
I drive for movies.
Is that dangerous?
It's only part-time.
D'un drive. On pourrait avoir des objections parce qu'il est allé à Hollywood. Il était capable de vaincre cette monstre et de faire un film que c'est pas un film de gangster banal, c'est un chant à l'amour suprême. C'est une histoire d'amour d'une délicatesse profonde. Je n'oublierai jamais le moment que cet homme, avec un bras, tu vois, pousse la femme dans l'ascenseur, la place dans un lieu de respect absolu. Et après, avec une sauvagerie exaltante, détruit les méchants. C'est un moment d'art suprême.
your life becomes the film and the film becomes your life was Nicolas Winding Refn. He also is very motivated by music, and a lot of the time he would just sort of listen to his headphones. He wouldn't even listen to what we were saying, you know, he would just listen to music. And he was listening to a lot of Brian Eno, Ascending, and he would just sort of cry. You know, he would just walk around the set crying. And he wore this blanket around his waist and to keep in his energy. And everybody on the crew was so kind of, they didn't really know what to make of him, so they decided that they would just join him. And everybody eventually started dressing like him. It was supposed to be an action film, you know, and it can, you know, and it's kind of a miracle, I guess, that it happened, you know. But it's not really a miracle because this was part of his plan all along. I see now all of the steps, you know, about things I didn't necessarily understand at the time. I saw that this was that he did have a plan, although he's very good at making it seem like he doesn't have one, you know.
I have questions for Ryan. We all know you're a fantastic actor. So, do you ever feel like it's time now for you to win a prestigious award?
Ryan, I want to.
You answer that for me, Nick. You're doing a great job.
Yes, Ryan?
Yes, what?
Stepped in chewing gum. Fucking French people.
There's something peaceful about this world that he's created for himself. You know, even in Cannes, I went to see him the other night in his room, and the kids were jumping on the bed, and he had these beautiful women around, and his beautiful wife, and he's created a little piece of heaven for himself. You know? All he really cares about is his family and making movies.
Oh, that's what you're gonna wear? Not bad, huh?
I have another pair of Red Sox if you want to wear Red Sox too.
Did you shower?
Some Puma socks.
Did you shower? I don't know this. Huh?
I'll be right back.
Ja, das können Sie wieder. Das ist überhaupt gesagt.
You know, as an actor, you can't make great films unless you have a great filmmaker. You know, and I've tried over the years, but I realized that you're nothing with it. You need your dude. You know, you need your partner. You know, and I feel like I've found that, I guess.
Please don't on the phone.
Whoa.
Coming here and in competition, you think about that rocks. It's the best. I mean, the biggest prize for me making Drive was that I was able to make a film the way I wanted to make it in Hollywood. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, that's like the ultimate prize because that's really hard. That's not by chance or circumstances or a tie, or that's just you doing what you do. So. But still, when you're here, because of the glamour of everything, which is part of it, you get caught up in that you want to win, you know. And I hate myself for getting caught up, but I can't help it. It's kind of, I could win a prize instead of Lars. That could be kind of fun to remind him of that, and then like just, you know, all the people that always made fun of me are not laughing now.
Yes. A couple of years ago, you were broke and you were on national television saying that things were pretty hard on you. Now you're sitting right there. Could you give me a few words on the fairy tale?
I like the ugly duckling.
What do you mean by that?
He becomes a swan. Next question.
Best director is Nicolas Winding Refn for Drive.
I know deep down that if I don't do what I do the way I do it, I wouldn't know what to do with my life. At the same time, I know that I've given the greatest possibility of being a parent, and how do I struggle with that, and every day is always guilt. But you use that creatively, and in the end, that's what life is really all about. Just trying to be a good person as much as you can. But I mean, we maybe have a good chance for the Oscars for either like the supporting, the music, maybe me, and things like that, you know. So are we hiring the consultants tomorrow for the Oscar campaigns?
It's just like being married to Nicolas. Always on the phone. Always waiting. We have like a whole room full of robots. I'm really tired of it. So I put all of the robots in the basement when he was in LA making Drive. He was furious. But did you like fold it and wrap it nicely? And I was like, no, I just dropped it in a bag, put it in the basement. He was like having a heart attack.
This is why we came to Thailand. We came to Thailand so I can actually buy toys and then make a movie.
It's true. That's why you chose Bangkok. You didn't think of your family. You didn't think of me. You just thought of this store. 6 months. 6 months in Bangkok.
I have that. I don't have that, and that, because I can't get them. I have this. I have everything down here.
He's 40 years old. He still wants to buy toys, spend all our money on toys.
And you put it into the basement. See, my life is controlled by Liv. She buys my clothes, she tells me what to wear, when to get a haircut, what to eat.
And this looks like Thomas Winterberg.
Oh, yeah. But you know, behind every great man, there's a great woman.
Thank you.
Can I have this? I'm also a bit nervous now because can I ever live up to the expectation of Drive, which was never meant to be so successful. But fear always brings creativity. It forces me to be more creative, and hopefully I will solve it. And if I don't, I don't know what I'll do. This is when I'm most peaceful. Most relaxed. how to build it. What the fuck does all this mean?